To a Roman aristocrat living in the damp chill of Britannia, winter was a choice, not a mandate. While the rest of the ancient world huddled around smoky open hearths, coughing in the gloom, the Roman elite walked on floors that radiated a gentle, invisible warmth, as if the summer sun had been buried alive beneath the mosaic tiles. But this miracle of engineering, a floor warm enough to sleep on naked in December, was not magic. It was a machine, a hungry, breathing beast of brick and clay that demanded constant, rhythmic feeding. Welcome to dulled history. Tonight, we are descending beneath the polished marble surfaces of a provincial villa to operate the hypocaust, the central heating system of the ancient world. We are stripping away the white toga mythology to look at the soot, the radiant heat, and the precise, exhausting labor required to keep an empire warm in a hostile climate. Get comfortable. The fire is waiting. The year is 155 AD, and the location is a sprawling villa complex near the garrison town of Viraconium, in what is now Shropshire, England. It is the dead of winter, the kind of deep, penetrating cold that seeps into the mortar of stone walls and makes iron brittle to the touch. But you are not feeling the cold, not yet. You are lying on a pallet of straw in the slave quarters, listening to the wind rattle the wooden shutters. In the utter darkness of the pre-dawn hour, the air in your small room is frigid, stealing the heat from your breath the moment it leaves your lungs. You can see your own exhalations as faint gray ghosts in the gloom. The stone floor beneath your thin mattress is ice cold, a stark reminder of the natural order of things, an order you are about to spend the next 14 hours defying. You swing your legs out of the blankets, your feet hitting the packed earth floor with a dull thud. The cold bites immediately, a sharp shock that travels up your shins, waking your nervous system with unpleasant efficiency. You dress quickly in the dark, pulling on a coarse wool tunic that scratches against your skin. It smells of wood smoke and old sweat, the permanent perfume of your profession. You wrap ragged strips of cloth around your calves and ankles, binding them tight to keep the draft out, and slide your feet into heavy leather boots. These boots are thick-soled, reinforced with hobnails, designed not for marching but for insulation. The floor you will be standing on today will be hot enough to blister bare skin, and the ground you are walking on now is frozen solid. You live your life in the extremes. Stepping out into the courtyard, the winter air hits you like a physical blow. The sky is a bruised purple-black, the stars hard and distinct above the tile roof of the villa. Frost coats everything, the dormant garden beds, the bronze statue of the household god, the frozen surface of the water trough. You move quickly, head down, your breath trailing behind you like a steam engine. The villa is silent, a sleeping giant of red brick and white plaster. Inside those walls, the family is asleep under piles of furs, their rooms kept at a steady, pleasant temperature by your labor. They do not know you are awake. They do not know the technical specifications of the airflow required to keep the master's bedroom 5 degrees warmer than the atrium. They only know that the floor is warm when their feet touch it. You head towards the back of the house, past the kitchens and the stables, to a sunken area that looks like the entrance to a mine. This is the Prefernium, the service pit. It is dug down 3 feet below the ground level of the house, a trench lined with soot-stained brick. As you descend the stone steps, the temperature shifts. The biting cold of the British winter recedes, replaced by a dry, dusty warmth that radiates from the wall in front of you. This is your domain. The furnace itself is not a roaring bonfire in the middle of a room, but a precise architectural feature built into the foundation of the house. You stand before the stokehole, an arched opening in the brickwork about 3 feet high and 2 feet wide. It looks like the mouth of a bread oven, but deeper, darker, and infinitely more powerful. Through this arch, you can see into the belly of the house. This is the hypocaust, literally, fire beneath. The floor of the villa above is suspended on pillars of tile called pilli stacks, creating a hollow chamber about 2 feet high that runs under the entire building. Your job is not just to build a fire. It is to manage a river of hot air that flows through this subterranean forest of pillars and up through hollow tiles in the walls, turning the entire building into a radiator. You kneel on the flagstones of the pit, the stone warm against your knees. The fire from the night before has burned down to a bed of glowing coals, a pulsing heart of deep orange buried under a blanket of gray ash. The heat is immediate, drying the moisture on your face, tightening the skin across your forehead. It is a dry, aggressive heat, smelling of oak and minerals. You pick up an iron rake, the handle polished smooth by years of use, and reach into the archway. The metal scrapes against the brick floor of the furnace channel. You pull the ash forward, sifting it gently. You are looking for clinkers impurities in the wood that have melted and fused into glass-like stones that can block the airflow. You find a few, knocking them aside, before raking the live coals into a tight pile in the center of the draft. The draft is everything. A hypocaust is an engine of airflow. If the fire is too big, you choke the channel and smoke backs up into the pit, filling your lungs. If the fire is too small, the draw weakens, and the heat fails to reach the far corners of the dining room. You have to feel the air moving past you. You hold a wet hand up to the mouth of the furnace. You can feel the cold air from the pit being sucked past your fingers, drawn into the inferno by the rising heat inside the walls. The house is inhaling. You turn to the woodpile stacked against the retaining wall of the pit. The selection of fuel is a science in itself. You don't just throw any branch into the profernium. Green wood is forbidden. It contains too much sap, creating thick, acrid smoke that clogs the flues with soot and can seep up through cracks in the mosaic, choking the master in his sleep. You need seasoned hardwood. You select a piece of oak, heavy and dense, cured for 2 years until it is as hard as bone. The bark is rough under your fingers, dry and gray. You heft it, feeling its weight. This log will burn slow and hot, releasing its energy over hours rather than minutes. You toss the log onto the bed of coals. It lands with a heavy thud, sending a shower of sparks swirling up into the darkness of the underfloor chamber. The sparks dance for a moment, illuminating the rows of brick pillars that stretch away into the gloom like the columns of a miniature temple. You watch the wood. For a moment, nothing happens. Then the bark begins to curl and blacken. A small tongue of blue flame licks the underside of the log. The sap remaining deep in the fibers hisses, a tiny sound of protest before the wood catches. The flame turns yellow, then orange, growing steadily as the draft feeds it oxygen. You do not walk away. You stand and watch, leaning on the rake. You are listening to the sound of the furnace. It begins as a low murmur, the crackle of the wood, but as the heat builds, it deepens into a hollow roar. This is the sound of hot gases rushing away from you, traveling under the floor of the tepidarium, the warm room of the bathhouse suite attached to the villa. You can visualize the path of the heat. It flows around the first stack of tiles, splits, and winds its way through the labyrinth. It hits the far wall and is sucked upwards into the tubuli, the rectangular box tiles built inside the walls of the rooms above. As the hot smoke rises through these chimneys, it heats the plaster of the walls, wrapping the room in a blanket of warmth from all sides. The heat in the pit is rising now. You take off your outer wool tunic, folding it neatly on a bench. Underneath, you wear a linen undertunic, already damp with the first sheen of sweat. The temperature differential is staggering. 2 feet behind you at the top of the stairs, the air is freezing, capable of killing a man left exposed overnight. 2 feet in front of you, the air is 500 degrees. You exist in the narrow strip of habitable atmosphere between the two. You reach for a basket of charcoal. While the main furnace burns wood to heat the baths and the main living areas, the charcoal is for the more delicate adjustments. Charcoal burns cleaner, with almost no smoke. You use it when the wind is blowing the wrong way, or when the master demands extra heat without the risk of fumes. The charcoal pieces are light, brittle, and black, leaving a fine dust on your hands that works its way into your pores and under your fingernails. You shovel a scoop of charcoal into the side of the fire, banking it against the brickwork. It glows instantly, a fierce, radiant red that adds a punch of intensity to the burn. The sun is beginning to crest the horizon now, turning the sky from black to a pale, watery gray. You can hear the first stirrings of the household above, the slap of sandals on stone, the clatter of a bronze pot in the kitchen. But down here, the rhythm remains unchanged. Your world is measured in the consumption of fuel. You check the stack of wood. It is low. You will need to haul more from the storage shed before the mid-morning demand peaks. You pick up a leather carrier, a sling-like device used for hauling logs, and climb the stairs out of the pit. The cold air hits your sweat-dampened skin instantly, freezing the moisture on your arms. It is a shock that makes you gasp, your breath vanishing into the mist. You walk across the frosted grass to the woodshed, a long, low structure packed floor to ceiling with timber. The smell inside is intense, the sweet, musty scent of drying wood, sawdust, and earth. It is a quiet, enclosed smell, distinct from the sharp ozone scent of the morning air. You begin to load the carrier. Ash, beech, oak. You avoid the pine. It burns too fast and leaves too much tar. You work rhythmically, bending, lifting, stacking. The rough bark scrapes your palms, but your hands are calloused, the skin thickened by years of handling timber. You hoist the load onto your shoulder, feeling the solid, crushing weight of the energy potential you are carrying. Each of these logs represents an hour of comfort for someone else, an hour where they can sit in a room wearing light silk while a blizzard rages outside. You are not just carrying wood, you are carrying winter itself, contained and domesticated. Back at the furnace, you drop the load, the wood clattering onto the stone. You feed 2 more logs into the maw of the fire. The draft catches them immediately. The roar of the furnace deepens, a contented sound. You take a moment to drink from a clay jug of water kept in the corner. The water is cool, tasting slightly of the ceramic. You wipe your mouth with the back of your hand, leaving a smear of soot across your cheek. Now comes the inspection. You must ensure the heat is distributing evenly. You cannot go upstairs into the family's quarters to check the floor temperature. You are invisible, part of the machinery, but there are test tiles built into the exterior wall of the furnace flue. You walk around the side of the villa to where the chimney exits. You place your hand against the brickwork. It should be warm but not hot enough to burn. If it is too hot, you are wasting fuel, sending all the heat out into the sky instead of trapping it under the floor. If it is cold, the draft is blocked. The brick is perfect as solid, radiating warmth that seeps into your palm. It feels like a living thing, like the flank of a horse after a gallop. You press your cheek against the warm brick for a moment, stealing a bit of the comfort you are creating. The vibration of the rushing air inside the flue hums against your jawbone. You return to the pit. The sun is fully up now, weak and pale, offering no real warmth. The day has officially begun. The master will be waking soon. He will step out of bed, his feet touching the mosaic floor depicting the seasons. He will feel the warmth on his soles, a sensation as natural to him as the air he breathes. He will not think of the oak logs, the ash raked from the channel, the precise calculation of the draft, or the man shivering in the pit 3 feet below his world. But you know that the warmth of Rome is not a gift from the gods. It is a fire built in the dark, tended by dirty hands, fed with heavy timber and constant vigilance. You sit on the wooden bench in the Prefernium, watching the flames dance in the archway. The heat washes over you, heavy and somnolent. You pick up the iron rake. The fire has shifted. It needs tending. As the morning progresses, the demand on the system changes. The bathhouse will be used later in the day, around the 8th hour, and heating the water requires a different intensity than heating the air. The Roman bath is a complex organism of varying temperatures. The frigidarium, cold room, the tepidarium, warm room, and the caldarium, hot room. Each requires a specific caloric input. The water in the bronze boilers above the furnace must be brought to a simmer, but not a boil. You have to anticipate this need hours in advance. You cannot simply turn a dial. You have to build the thermal mass now so that the water is ready then. You shift your attention to the water heating tank, a massive lead-lined vessel mounted directly over the hottest part of the furnace channel. You can hear the water beginning to move inside it, a low rumble of convection currents. You check the lead pipes that feed the tank. They are cold to the touch, sweating with condensation. You wipe the moisture away with a rag. If that condensation drips onto the hot bricks below, it can crack them. Maintenance is 90% of your existence. A cracked brick means shutting down the furnace, letting the house go cold, crawling into the soot-choked tunnel to patch the masonry in the dark. It is a nightmare you avoid with obsessive care. You throw a handful of dried herbs onto the fire, rosemary and lavender, dried from the summer garden. This is a trick of the trade. Sometimes, if the wind shifts, a downdraft can push a puff of smoke back into the room or through the floor. By burning herbs, you ensure that if any scent escapes, it smells like incense, not a forest fire. The herbs crackle and pop, releasing a sharp, clean fragrance that mixes with the wood smoke. It is a small deception, a way of masking the industrial reality of the heating system. You lean back against the wall of the pit, closing your eyes for a moment. The heat is soaking into your bones, loosening the tightness in your shoulders. It is a strange existence, living in the furnace room. You are the warmest person in Britannia, yet you are always on the edge of the cold. You are the engine of the household, yet you are never seen. You listen to the fire. It tells you stories. A pop means a pocket of steam in the wood. A hiss means green bark. A low, fluttery sound means the wind outside is picking up, disrupting the draw. You know the language of combustion better than you know Latin. You pick up a shovel and move a pile of unburnt charcoal back into the center of the heat. The efficiency of the burn is a point of pride. You want white ash, fine as flour. White ash means complete combustion. Black chunks mean you were lazy, that you let the fire smother itself. You do not produce black chunks. Around mid-morning, a kitchen slave appears at the top of the stairs, carrying a bowl of pottage and a chunk of bread. He does not come down, the heat is too intense for him. He leaves the food on the top step and nods to you. You nod back. This is your social interaction for the morning. You climb up to retrieve the food. The porridge is tepid, made of spelt and water, flavored with a bit of salt pork fat. It is fuel, just like the wood is fuel. You eat it standing at the edge of the pit, watching the smoke drift from the chimney stack. The bread is hard, crusty, and good. You use it to wipe the bowl clean. As you eat, you look out over the villa grounds. You can see the gardener working on the hedges, his breath misting in the air, wrapped in a heavy cloak. You feel a strange sense of superiority. He is out there fighting the elements. You have tamed them. You have built a cage for the summer and trapped it in a brick box. You finish the meal and descend back into the warmth. The fire has consumed the oak logs and is asking for more. You oblige. This time you choose beech wood. Beech burns bright and hot, good for pushing the temperature up quickly. The master is likely in his study now, perhaps writing letters or reviewing accounts. The study is on the north side of the house, the hardest room to heat. You need to push the hot air all the way to the end of the flue run. You use the rake to open the airway a bit more, creating a fiercer draft. The fire responds with a roar, the flames licking higher, reaching for the throat of the channel. You watch the flames transform the wood. The solid log loses its structure, breaking down into cubes of glowing charcoal, shedding its energy in waves of infrared radiation. You can feel it on your face, a prickling sensation. You are sweating freely now, the moisture running down your back. You drink more water. Dehydration is a silent killer in the Prefernium. You have seen stokers pass out from the heat, collapsing too close to the fire. You pace yourself, you drink, you wipe your brow, you watch the fire. The hypocaust is not just under the floor, it is inside the walls. The tubuli, those hollow rectangular tiles, form a continuous skin of heat around the room. You imagine the air rising through them, invisible columns of warmth fighting back the frost that presses against the outside of the stone walls. It is a war of attrition. The cold is infinite, patient, and relentless. The fire is finite, hungry, and demanding. You are the mediator. You keep the fire winning one log at a time. You notice a small crack in the mortar of the furnace arch. Its hairline barely visible, but it pulses slightly with the heat. You mark it in your mind. You will need to mix some clay and crushed tile to patch that when the furnace is cold in the spring. If you ignore it, the heat will worry at it, expanding and contracting the brick until the arch fails. The villa is a living thing, constantly degrading, constantly needing repair. The paint peels, the roof tiles slip, the mosaics lose their grout, and the furnace bricks crack. Entropy is the only constant. You pick up the shovel again. The ash pit needs clearing. If the ash builds up too high, it chokes the air intake. You gently shovel the gray powder into a bronze bucket. It is light, almost weightless, and floats in the air if you move too fast. You move with slow, deliberate gestures like a priest at an altar. You carry the bucket up the stairs and dump it on the designated ash heap near the garden. The gardener will use it later. Wood ash is good for the soil. Nothing is wasted. The energy of the tree warms the house. The remains of the tree feed the earth to grow the vegetables that feed the household. It is a cycle, and you are the one turning the wheel. Back in the pit, the fire has settled into a steady, rhythmic burn. This is the cruising altitude of the heating system. The mass of the floor and walls has absorbed the heat and is now radiating it back. The house is saturated with warmth. You can relax slightly. You sit on your bench, sharpening a small knife on a whetstone. The rhythmic shhh sound of the stone against steel mixes with the roar of the fire. You look at your hands. The soot is ingrained in the lines of your palms, a permanent tattoo of your trade. You are a creature of carbon. You wonder what the master is doing right now. Is he walking across the floor you heated? Is he dropping his robe to the tiles, confident that the air will embrace him? He trusts the floor the way he trusts the sun to rise. He does not know that the floor is warm because you chose beech wood instead of pine. He does not know that the air is clean because you burned lavender. He does not know that the system is working because you cleared the clinkers at 4 a.m. You are the ghost in the machine. You are the unseen variable in the equation of Roman luxury. The empire is built on roads, on laws, on legions, but it is also built on this, the ability to conquer the environment, to make winter irrelevant. And that conquest happens here, in a hole in the ground, with a rake in your hand and sweat in your eyes. The sun climbs higher. The light in the pit changes from the gray of dawn to the sharper, brighter light of midday. But the fire does not care about the sun. The fire only cares about the wood. You stand up. You check the draft. You reach for another log. The beast must be fed. The sun has pulled itself free of the horizon now, hanging low and pale in the southern sky, a coin of white silver that offers light but no heat. Down in the Prefernium, the light shifts. The deep, shadowy orange of the dawn fire is replaced by a sharper, dustier illumination that filters down the stone steps. It reveals the true grime of your surroundings, the layers of soot that coat the brick arches, the fine gray dust that dances in the shafts of sunlight, the sheen of sweat that slickens your own skin. The morning rush is over. The house is awake. The initial blast of heat required to break the overnight chill has done its work, and now you are settling into the long, steady rhythm of maintenance. This is the endurance phase, where the work becomes less about brute force and more about intuition. You stand before the furnace arch, your eyes narrowed against the glare of the coal bed. The fire is breathing differently now. In the early morning, it was a hungry, gasping thing, demanding air and fuel to fight the cold stone. Now it is a hum, a steady, resonant vibration that you feel in the soles of your boots. The thermal mass of the villatons of concrete, brick, and tile has absorbed the energy you fed it. The floor above is no longer a heat sink. It is a radiator. Your job has shifted from creating heat to sustaining it. You are balancing the equation. You reach for the iron rake, its metal warm from proximity to the fire. You don't need to add a log yet. Instead, you need to manage the airflow. If the fire burns too fast now, the rooms above will become stifling, and the master will complain of headaches and dry air. If it burns too low, the draft will stall, and the smoke will eddy back into the pit. You push the rake into the heart of the fire, gently separating two large oak logs that have fused together. A shower of sparks swirls up, caught instantly by the draft and sucked into the dark throat of the flue. You watch them go, imagining their journey. They will fly beneath the floor of the triclinium, the dining room, where the family will soon be gathering for the prandium, the midday meal. You imagine the sparks dying out in the darkness of the hypocaust channels, tiny falling stars in a stone sky. You wipe your forehead with a rag that was once white but is now a stiff, gray, stiffened cloth of soot and sweat. The heat in the pit is cumulative. The bricks retain it. The stone floor radiates it. You are working inside an oven. You step back to the water jar, taking a long, measured drink. The water is tepid now, having absorbed the ambient temperature of the room, but it is wet, and that is all that matters. You can feel the salt drying on your skin, a tight, itchy crust on your neck and arms. This is the tax the fire exacts from you. It takes the moisture from your body and sends it up the chimney. A noise from the top of the stairs draws your attention. It is the bath attendant, a slave named Marcus who works the daylight side of the luxury you provide. He does not come down. He values his clean tunic too much, but he leans over the retaining wall, peering into the gloom. He gestures with his hand, 3 fingers raised. The signal is clear. The master intends to bathe earlier than usual today. The 3rd hour. That changes everything. The bath suite is a separate system, or rather a specialized branch of the main system. It requires more than just warm air. It requires hot water and steam. You nod to Marcus, acknowledging the order. He disappears, heading back to the light and the scent of perfumed oils. You turn back to the furnace, your mind shifting gears. The steady cruise is over. You need to wake the beast up. The bath boiler is a massive lead tank mounted directly above the main flue channel, just behind the furnace arch. It holds hundreds of gallons of water. To heat it to the temperature, a Roman aristocrat expects hot enough to open the pores, but not so hot as to scald requires a significant surge of energy. You cannot simply throw more wood on the existing fire. You need to change the architecture of the burn. You need flame height. You go to the woodpile and bypass the dense, slow-burning oak. You need pine. You need the resinous, volatile wood that burns fast and throws a long flame. You find a stack of split pine logs, their cut ends oozing sticky amber sap. The smell is sharp and clean, cutting through the dusty scent of the ash. You pick up 2 of the logs, their bark rough and flaky. You toss them onto the bed of coals, positioning them so they lean against the back of the firebox. The reaction is almost immediate. The resin inside the wood boils and gasifies, catching fire with a whooshing sound that echoes in the small chamber. Yellow flames, bright and aggressive, leap upwards, licking at the underside of the lead tank. You can hear the water inside the tank beginning to react. It starts as a low murmur, a series of clicks and thuds as the metal expands and the water begins to churn. This is the sound of convection. The hot water is rising, pushing the cold water down to be heated in turn. It is a violent process contained within a dull gray metal box. You monitor the fire closely now. Pine produces soot-thick, greasy black soot that can coat the inside of the flues and insulate the tank, making the heat transfer less efficient. You have to keep the draft roaring to scour the soot away. You open the damper on the air intake fully. The rush of air past your ears increases to a whistle. The fire is roaring now, a controlled inferno. You can feel the radiant heat pushing you back, forcing you to squint. The skin on your face feels tight as if it is being pulled back. You step away to the cooler side of the pit, near the wood store, to catch your breath. From here, you can see the plumbing that feeds the bath. Great lead pipes, thick as your arm, run along the wall. They are sweating profusely, beads of condensation forming on the cold metal and dripping onto the stone floor. This is the danger zone. If the fire gets too hot, the lead can soften. If the water boils dry, the tank can melt. You are managing a bomb. You watch the pipes, looking for the telltale vibration that means the water is nearing a boil. You want a simmer, a gentle rolling heat, not a violent boil. The logistics of the bath are mind-boggling when you stop to think about them. The water is brought in via a small diversion from the local stream, flowing through clay pipes for a mile before it reaches the villa. It enters the cold tank, then flows to the warm tank, then to the hot tank. Every drop of water that touches the master's skin has been carried by gravity and heated by your sweat. He will sit in the caldarium, the hot room, where the floor is so hot he must wear wooden sandals to walk on it. He will sweat out the impurities of his diet, the rich wines and heavy sauces, and he will feel clean. He will scrape his skin with a strigil, removing the oil and dirt, and he will feel civilized. He will never see the pine logs. He will never smell the resin burning. He will never know that the perfect temperature of his bath is the result of you knowing exactly how many logs to add and exactly when to add them. You check the fuel supply. The pine is burning down fast. It consumes itself in a frenzy of energy. You need to restock. You grab the leather carrier again. The trip to the woodshed is a relief this time. The air outside has warmed slightly, but it is still crisp and cool compared to the pit. The sky is a flat, expansive gray, promising rain later. You breathe it in, letting the cool air fill your lungs, cooling the blood in your chest. You look at the landscape. The hills in the distance are covered in a mist that clings to the treetops. This is a wet, green land, so different from the dry, sun-baked hills of Italy that the master talks about. Here the earth is heavy with water. You load the carrier with more pine and some birch. Birch is good for a quick burst of heat without the heavy soot of pine. It burns with a bright, cheerful flame. As you stack the wood, you notice a beetle crawling on one of the logs. It is a small, iridescent thing, green and gold. You pause, watching it navigate the rough terrain of the bark. It has no idea it is about to be thrown into a furnace. You brush it off gently, letting it fall into the grass. You are a destroyer of wood, but you do not need to be a destroyer of beetles. It is a small act of mercy, unseen and unrecorded, but it makes you feel human. You haul the wood back to the pit. The physical effort is constant. Your shoulders ache with a dull, throbbing pain that has become the background noise of your life. Your hands are locked into a permanent grip, the muscles of your forearms corded and tight. You drop the wood and immediately feed the fire. The water tank is humming now, a steady, low-frequency vibration that you can feel in your teeth. It is ready. You sit on the bench, wiping your hands on your tunic. The midday meal for the household is being prepared above. You can smell it now, a drift of roasting meat, maybe pork or hare, seasoned with garum and cumin. The smell filters down through the air vents, a ghost of a feast. Your stomach tightens. You will not eat meat today. You will have more bread, perhaps some cheese if the kitchen slaves are generous, and onions. The onions are good. They have a sharp, biting flavor that cuts through the taste of soot in your mouth. You chew on a piece of dried apple you saved from yesterday, savoring the sweetness. The sun is at its zenith, or as close as it gets in this northern winter. The light in the pit is at its brightest. You can see the details of the brickwork clearly now. You see the scorch marks around the arch, the history of 1,000 fires written in carbon. You see the maker's mark stamped into one of the bricks, leg XX, the 20th Legion. This brick was made by soldiers, men who conquered this land with swords and then built this villa with trowels. You wonder where that soldier is now. Dead, probably, buried in the mud of some frontier skirmish. But his brick remains, holding up the floor of a wealthy man, keeping the heat in. You feel a strange kinship with the brick. You are both tools of the empire, serving a purpose, enduring the heat until you crack. You stand up to check the testudo. This is a metal plate. riveted to the bottom of the water tank that dips down into the fire itself. It increases the surface area, heating the water faster. It is the most vulnerable part of the system. If the metal fatigues, it can burst, dumping hundreds of gallons of water into the fire. The resulting steam explosion would kill you instantly, boiling the flesh from your bones before you could even scream. You inspect it every day. You look for warping, for discoloration. The metal is glowing a dull red, which is normal. It holds. You breathe out. The wind outside is picking up. You can hear it moaning around the corners of the villa, a low, mournful sound. It affects the draft. A gust of wind can push down the chimney, forcing smoke back into the pit. You feel a puff of acrid smoke hit your face, making your eyes water. You curse softly and reach for the damper, adjusting the plate to narrow the aperture. You have to fight the wind, modulating the airflow to maintain the pressure. It is a constant duel. The wind wants to put the fire out. The fire wants to consume the house. You are the referee. Above you, you hear the muffled sounds of the household moving towards the baths. Heavy thud of the door closing, the clatter of wooden sandals, the murmur of voices. They are entering the tepidarium now, the warm room. They will sit there for a while, letting their bodies adjust to the heat, talking of politics, of the harvest, of the gossip from Rome. They are sitting directly over the flue you are feeding. You imagine the heat rising up through the floor, warming their feet. You wonder if they ever think about where it comes from. Probably not. Does a man think about the root when he eats the apple? You throw more birch onto the fire. The flames dance bright and lively. The heat in the pit is intense now, a physical weight. You strip off your linen undertunic, working bare-chested. The air hits your skin, but it is hot air, offering no relief. You are coated in a fine layer of sweat and ash, a gray paste that highlights the muscles of your back. You are a statue of labor, carved from living rock and animated by fire. The master will be moving to the caldarium soon. This is the peak demand. You rake the coals forward, concentrating the heat under the hot tank. You add the last of the pine. The roar of the furnace increases. You check the output pipe. It is too hot to touch, radiating a fierce heat. The water flowing to the bath is near boiling. Perfect. You take a moment to clean the area while the fire does its work. You sweep the stone floor of the pit, gathering the wood chips and bark debris. A clean workspace is safer. You stack the remaining wood neatly. You organize your tools, the rake, the shovel, the poker. This orderliness is your only control. You cannot control the master or the weather or your freedom, but you can control the arrangement of the logs. It is a small sovereignty. A rat scuttles along the edge of the wall, seeking the warmth. You watch it. It is bold, knowing you are occupied. It stops, sniffs the air, and disappears into a crack in the masonry. You do not chase it. The rats are part of the house, just like you. They live in the shadows, eating the crumbs, surviving on the edges of the light. You feel a flicker of amusement. In the trenches of the heating system, you and the rat are equals. The afternoon is beginning to turn. The light in the pit is softening again, losing its midday edge. The frantic push for the bath heat will taper off soon. The master will finish his bath, get a massage, and move to the dining room. The demand will shift again. You will need to let the water fire die down and build up the main heating fire for the evening. The cycle continues. You lean on the handle of the shovel, staring into the flames. The fire is hypnotic. It is always changing, never the same shape twice. It is the only thing in this pit that is truly alive. It eats, it breathes, it grows, it dies. You are its servant. You feed it the bones of the forest, and it gives you back heat. It is a fair trade, simpler than the transactions of the world above. You hear the drain sluice open above. The sound of rushing water echoes in the pipes. The bath is over. The dirty water, gray with sweat and oil, is flushing out into the sewer system. The heat you created is being washed away, flowing out into the cold British soil. It feels like a waste, but you know it isn't. The luxury was the point. The expenditure of energy was the status symbol. To burn a forest to heat a bath for 1 hour is the ultimate display of power, and you are the one who burned it. You bank the fire, covering the intense pine coals with a layer of slower burning oak. You need to lower the temperature of the water tank now, or it will boil over. You close the damper slightly. The roar subsides to a purr. The beast is settling down. You sit back on the bench, your chest heaving slightly. The rush is over. The sweat on your skin begins to cool, sending a shiver through you despite the heat. You grab your tunic and pull it back on. The rough wool feels scratchy against your sensitive skin. You drink more water. You are empty, drained. You have poured your energy into the fire and it has gone up the chimney. But the day is not over. The afternoon stretches out before you. The dining room needs to be perfect for the evening meal. The bedrooms need to be prepped for the night. The woodpile needs to be replenished again. You look at the stairs leading up to the daylight. The rectangle of sky is a dull, flat white. It looks cold. You prefer the fire. You pick up the whetstone and the knife again. Shhh. The rhythmic sound fills the quiet moments between the crackle of the logs. You find a strange peace in it. The world above is full of complexity, of laws and hierarchies, of wars and politics. Down here there is only physics. Heat rises, wood burns, water boils. It is an honest world. You close your eyes for a second, listening to the house. You can hear the distant murmur of voices, the clinking of dishes. They are eating the lunch you smelled earlier. You imagine the taste of the roast pork, the salt and the fat. Your stomach rumbles, a hollow protest. You ignore it. Hunger is just another sensation, like the heat or the cold. You can endure it. You are Roman iron. You open your eyes. The fire needs checking. You stand up, your knees cracking. You walk to the arch. The oak is catching well, a deep, steady burn. You are satisfied. You look at the pile of ash you cleared earlier. It is a gray mountain in the corner. That is the ghost of the morning's forest. You will have to move it soon. For now, you wait. You stand guard over the warmth. You are the keeper of the flame, the secret engine of the empire. The master walks in light and warmth because you stand in shadow and soot. It is a balance. It is the way of the world. You rake the coals. The sparks fly up, a brief, bright constellation in the dark. You watch them until they fade. The work continues. The fire must not go out. The afternoon settles over the villa like a heavy woolen blanket. The frantic energy of the bath hour has dissipated, washing away with the gray, soapy water down the clay drains and out toward the river. In the Profernium, the silence returns, but it is a different kind of silence than the morning's pre-dawn hush. That was a silence of anticipation. This is a silence of recovery. The fire is still burning, but it is no longer the roaring beast that threatened to melt the lead tank. It is a steady, brooding presence, a bed of deep red coals pulsing with a low, rhythmic heat that keeps the baseline temperature of the house from plummeting. You are in the trough of the day's labor, the shallow valley between the twin peaks of the morning warm-up and the evening feast. You take this opportunity to perform the tasks that are impossible when the furnace is at full blast. You pick up a long-handled brush, a crude tool made of stiff birch twigs bound to a pole with leather thongs. You approach the soot door's small, bricked-over access points at the base of the main flue stack. You carefully pry out the loose brick that serves as a plug. A puff of warm, acrid air escapes, smelling of concentrated carbon. You insert the brush, pushing it deep into the dark throat of the chimney. You are sweeping the lungs of the house. Soot is the enemy. It is the unburnt soul of the wood, a black, insulating powder that clings to the inside of the tiles. You let it build up. It acts as a barrier, preventing the heat from transferring to the rooms above. Worse, if a spark catches a thick layer of soot, you can start a chimney fire that burns hot enough to crack the masonry and bring the wall down. You work the brush back and forth, listening to the scratchy sound of twigs against fired clay. You can feel the resistance of the soot. You twist the handle, scrubbing the corners. When you pull the brush out, a cascade of black flakes falls onto the stone floor. You sweep them up immediately. This is the black snow of your profession. You step back, coughing slightly. The air in the pit is always thick, always carrying a suspension of particulate matter. Your own lungs are likely as coated as the flues. You have seen older stokers, men who have spent 20 years in the pits, who breathe with a wheezing rattle, their spit perpetually flecked with black. It is the price of warmth. The master pays with coins, you pay with breath. You drink more water to wash the taste of oak smoke from your throat. The sun outside has moved past the roofline of the villa, casting the Profernium into deep shadow. The temperature outside is dropping already. The brief, watery warmth of the winter afternoon is surrendering to the encroaching twilight. You can see the shift in the color of the light at the top of the stairs, from a pale, flat white to a deepening, bruised blue. This signals the next phase of your duty. Family will soon be preparing for the cena, the main meal of the day. The dining room, the triclinium, is located on the western side of the villa to catch the last light of the setting sun. It is a large room with high ceilings and a magnificent mosaic floor depicting the rape of Ganymede. Large rooms are notoriously difficult to heat. The volume of air is immense, and the heat naturally rises to the coffered ceiling, leaving the guests' feet cold if you do not maintain a powerful, driving pressure from below. You cannot let the master's guests shiver while they recline on their couches. It would be a loss of face for the household, a sign that the host cannot afford enough wood or a competent slave to burn it. You walk to the fuel store to select the wood for the evening. For the dining room, you need a different strategy. You don't need the flash heat of the pine used for the baths, nor do you want the heavy smoke of green oak. You need a sustained, high-calorie burn that lasts for 3 or 4 hours without needing constant interruption. You choose the heartwood of the ash tree. Ash is the aristocrat of firewood. It burns with a clear, bright flame and produces intense heat even when green, though you only use the seasoned stock. It leaves very little ash and produces a smoke that is less acrid than oak. You load the carrier. The logs are smooth, the bark a pale, silvery gray that reflects the dim light. They feel dense and cold like bars of iron. You carry them to the pit, stacking them within arm's reach of the furnace mouth. You are staging your ammunition. As you work, you hear the heavy tread of sandals on the stairs. It is the kitchen steward, a man named Felix. He is carrying a large bronze brazier, empty and cold. He stops halfway down, unwilling to descend into the full heat of the pit. He sets the brazier on the step and looks at you. He doesn't need to speak. You know what he needs. The kitchen fires are for cooking, but the serving tables in the dining room need spot heating to keep the dishes warm before they are served. You take a shovel and turn to the side of your main fire, where you have been banking a pile of charcoal. You scoop up the glowing nuggets. They are weightless skeletal remains of wood that burn with a pure, flameless heat. You fill the brazier, the red glow illuminating your face and the soot-stained walls. The heat radiating from the shovel is intense, drying your eyes. You carry the brazier up to Felix. He nods, wraps a thick cloth around the handles and hauls it away. He's taking a piece of your fire to the table. You are the source. Every hot plate, every warm room, every comfortable moment starts here in the dirt. You return to the furnace. It is time to wake the system up for the evening. You rake the bed of coals level, creating a flat, glowing platform. You place the first 2 logs of ash wood onto the fire. You place them parallel to the airflow, allowing the draft to rush between them. This is critical. If you stack them across the flow, you create turbulence and slow the draw. You want laminar flow, smooth, fast air moving straight into the underfloor voids. The fire accepts the offering. The ash wood catches slowly, then burns with a steady yellow determination. You check the damper. You open it slightly to increase the oxygen. The roar returns, a low-frequency rumble that signifies power. You visualize the heat moving under the villa. You imagine it reaching the triclinium. The floor there is supported by pilly stacks made of square tiles. The hot air swirls around these columns, transferring its energy to the thermal mass of the floor. The mosaic stones above, the colored tesserae made of limestone, sandstone, and glass begin to absorb the warmth. You step outside for a moment to check the wind. The evening breeze has picked up, coming from the north. This is a problem. The north wind fights the draft of the southern furnace. It pushes down the chimney, trying to stuff the smoke back into the house. You have to outsmart the wind. You go to the stack of brushwood-dried hazel bundles used for kindling. You grab a handful and throw it into the back of the furnace. It flares up instantly, a violent burst of heat that shoots a column of hot air up the chimney. This thermal punch forces the cold air plug out of the stack and reestablishes the upward draft. You have to do this every hour when the wind is like this. It is a game of pressure differentials. Standing in the courtyard for a moment, you look up at the house. You can see the warm glow of oil lamps flickering in the windows of the dining room. You see shadows moving across the shutter slaves setting the table, arranging the silver, pouring the wine. You are separated from them by a wall of stone and a chasm of class, but you are intimately connected by the thermodynamics of the building. You know that if you stopped working right now, within an hour, those guests would be reaching for their cloaks. The cold of the evening is settling in hard. The ground is freezing again. You can feel the frost forming on the grass under your boots. It is a sharp, crystalline cold that hurts to breathe. You hurry back down into the pit. The warmth wraps around you, a familiar, stifling embrace. You strip off your outer tunic again. The dance of temperature freezing, sweating, freezing, sweating is the rhythm of your life. It confuses the body. You often feel feverish even when you are healthy. You sit on the bench and watch the fire. The evening service is a long haul. The meal will last for hours. There will be courses of eggs, shellfish, roast meats, sweet cakes. There will be wine mixed with water and honey. There will be music, perhaps a poetry reading. And through it all you will be here, feeding logs into a hole in the wall. You take a piece of bread from your stash. It is dry, but you are hungry. You dip it in the water jug to soften it. You eat slowly, chewing thoroughly. You think about the food upstairs. You have tasted oysters once, the leftovers from a banquet that were thrown out. They tasted like the sea, cold and slimy and salty. You didn't understand the appeal. You prefer the solid, honest taste of bread and onions, the fire shift. A log rolls, sending up a spark shower. You are up instantly, rake in hand. You push the log back into place. Vigilance is key. You cannot daydream too long. A shifted log can block the airflow. A blocked airflow means a cold floor. A cold floor means a beating. The chain of cause and effect is simple and brutal. You notice a change in the sound of the draft. It's a subtle pitch shift, a deepening of the roar. You cock your head, listening. It sounds like the wind outside is gusting. You brace yourself. A sudden gust can cause a blowback, where smoke is forced violently out of the furnace mouth. You stand to the side of the arch, not in front of it. Sure enough, a second later, a puff of gray smoke belches out, swirling into the pit. If you had been standing there, you would have been blinded. You wait for the pressure to equalize, then throw another bundle of brushwood to correct the flow. The wind is fighting you tonight. You check the water level in the boiler tank again, even though the bath is over. You cannot let it run dry, even if it's not being used. The residual heat from the main fire is still cooking the bottom of the tank. If it dries out, the lead will melt. You have to keep a trickle of water flowing into it, wasting hot water down the drain just to save the tank. It feels like a sin to waste heat, but the alternative is destruction. The hours pass. The pile of ash logs dwindles. You make another trip to the woodshed. It is fully dark now. The moon is up, a cold, indifferent eye staring down at the frozen province. The shadows in the woodshed are deep and black. You move by feel, your hands finding the familiar shapes of the logs. You hear the hoot of an owl from the nearby forest. It is a lonely sound. You wonder if the owl is cold. You at least have the fire. Back in the pit, the routine continues. Load, rake, listen. Load, rake, listen. Your muscles are tired now. The lactic acid is building up in your legs from the stairs. Your back aches from the bending. You are a machine that is slowly wearing out parts. But the fire does not care about your fatigue. It demands calories. You think about the construction of the hypocaust. You were there when they built it, 5 years ago. You saw the legionary engineers laying out the grid. You saw the bricklayers stacking the pilly columns, checking them with plumb lines. You saw the floor being laid on top, great slabs of terracotta spanning the pillars, then a layer of concrete, then the mortar, then the mosaic. It is a masterpiece of engineering, a suspended floor that defies the cold earth. And beneath it all, the empty space, the void where the hot air lives. You are the guardian of the void. You wonder if the guests upstairs can feel the variation in the heat. Can they tell when you switch from oak to ash? Can they feel the subtle drop in temperature when you go to fetch more wood? Or is it all just a magical, constant background to their lives? You suspect the latter. To them, heat is a condition of existence, not a product of labor. You lean against the warm brick wall, closing your eyes for a mere moment. The heat makes you drowsy. It is dangerous to sleep here. The carbon monoxide, the silent killer, can pool in the bottom of the pit if the draft fails. You have to stay awake. You shake your head, slapping your cheeks to stimulate blood flow. You stand up and pace the small floor of the Prefernium. 3 steps forward, turn 3 steps back. You are a tiger in a cage of heat. You pick up the poker and prod the fire aggressively. You need to see the flames leap. You need the visual confirmation of the energy. The ash wood breaks apart, revealing a core of blindingly bright orange. The heat washes over you. It is cleansing in a way. It burns away the cold, the damp, the doubt. There is only the fire. You hear laughter drifting down from an open window above. It sounds distant, alien. A woman's laugh, high and clear. It floats down into the pit and dissolves in the roar of the furnace. It belongs to a different world. You look at your hands, black with soot, the nails broken and rimmed with dirt. These are not the hands that hold wine goblets. These are the hands that make the holding of wine goblets possible. You check the time by the stars visible through the stairwell opening. The Great Bear is rotating around the pole star. It must be nearing the 10th hour. The dinner will be winding down soon. The guests will be moving to the sleeping quarters or leaving. But your work is not done. The bedrooms must be kept warm through the night. The fire must be banked down but never extinguished. You take a shovel and clear the ash from under the grate again. The pile of white powder grows. It is soft as silk, this wood ash. It represents hours of heat now spent. You think about the trees that died to make this pile. Oaks that stood for 100 years drinking the rain and the sun, now reduced to a bucket of dust in a Roman basement. It is a transformation. You are the alchemist. You turn wood into comfort and then into dust. You drink the last of the water in the jug. You will need to refill it. You walk up the stairs, the cold air hitting you like a physical slap. You walk to the trough in the courtyard. You have to break the ice on the surface with your fist. The water underneath is black and freezing. You dip the jug, your hand going numb instantly. The contrast is shocking. It wakes you up completely. You stand there for a moment, hand dripping with ice water, looking at the moon. The villa is a dark silhouette against the stars, but you can see the faint shimmer of heat haze rising from the chimney. That is your signature. That is your mark on the night. You return to the pit. The warmth is welcoming now, not oppressive. It is your shelter. You are safe here. Wolves are in the forest. The cold is on the moor. The masters are in their high towers, but you are here in the heart of the machine. You belong to the fire. The dinner service is ending. You can hear the movement of furniture above, the heavy scraping of couches being moved. The footsteps are heavier, slower. The guests are full, drunk, sleepy. They are heading to beds that are warmed by the air you sent up 2 hours ago. You are tucking them in, though they do not know it. You prepare for the transition to the night shift. You bring in the night logs, massive, knotty chunks of oak root that burn incredibly slowly. These are the logs that will hold the heat until dawn. You do not put them on yet. You let the ash wood burn down to a solid bed of coals. You are preparing the mattress for the night logs. You sweep the floor of the pit one last time. You organize the tools. You are a creature of habit. Order is the only defense against the chaos of the fire. You sit and wait. The fire crackles. The wind moans. The house creaks as it cools slightly in the sharp frost. You are the heartbeat of the villa, slow and steady in the dark. You are dulled history, and you are still awake. The fire needs you. You gaze into the embers, seeing shapes in the glowing red landscape. A city, a face, a mountain. The hallucinations of fatigue. You blink them away. You check the draft. It is pulling strong. The wind has shifted again. Good. The night will be easier. You lean back, the brick wall radiating against your spine. You are tired, but it is a good tired. It is the tiredness of a job done. You have fought the winter to a standstill for another day. You have held the line. The cold has not entered. The master is warm. The bath was hot. The dinner was comfortable. You have succeeded. But the night is long and the fire is hungry. You reach for the poker. The work is never truly done. It only changes pace. You are ready for the long watch. The darkness is your companion now. The fire is your friend. You are the hypocaust. Villa has gone blind. One by one, the rectangles of warm yellow light that punctuated the facade have been extinguished, swallowed by the heavy British darkness. The oil lamps in the triclinium were the first to die, their wicks snuffed out by tired slaves eager for their own pallets. Then the bedroom shutters were pulled tight, latching with distant wooden thuds that echoed through the courtyard. Now the only light for miles comes from the stars above and the arched mouth of the furnace below. The transition is complete. The house has moved from the active, chaotic consumption of the day to the slow, rhythmic breathing of the night. You are no longer heating a stage for politics and dining. You are heating a tomb for the living. You stand at the bottom of the Prefernium steps, watching the last vestiges of activity fade. A door slams somewhere in the slave quarters. A dog barks once, then settles. The silence that follows is heavy, pressing down on the roof of the villa like a physical weight. It is not a peaceful silence. It is a fragile one, held at bay only by the continuous low-frequency roar of the draft rushing past your ears. If that sound were to stop, the silence would be absolute, and the cold would begin its invasion. It is time for the night logs. You move to the back of the wood store, to a separate pile you haven't touched all day. These are not the clean-split logs of ash or beech. These are the root-snarled, twisted masses of wood dug from the earth when the fields were cleared. They are ugly things, clumped with dried mud and stones heavy as lead. But they are the secret to the night shift. Roots are dense, compressed by decades of soil pressure. They do not burn with a high, leaping flame. They smolder. They hold their heat with a stubborn, miserly refusal to let go, releasing energy in a slow, steady pulse that can last for hours. You pick up the first root. It is the size of a small boulder, shaped like a distorted human heart. You grunt with the effort of lifting it, feeling the strain in your lower back. Your body is stiff, the muscles cooling and tightening in the moments of rest. You swing the root into the furnace mouth. It lands on the bed of coals with a dull, heavy thud that shakes the grate. You add another, and then a third, interlocking them like puzzle pieces. You are building a dam against the cold. You reach for the damper plate, the iron slider that controls the air intake. During the day, you kept this wide open to feed the hungry flames of the bath fire. Now you slide it shut until only a narrow crescent of space remains. You are starving the fire, just enough to keep it from raging, but not enough to kill it. You want a sleeping fire, a bed of heat that glows deep red but produces almost no smoke. If you do this right, the temperature in the bedrooms above will hold steady at a comfortable warmth until the sun rises. If you do it wrong, the master will wake up shivering at the third watch, or sweating in a room that feels like a kiln. You sit back on your bench, wiping your hands on your tunic. The immediate task is done. Now begins the long wait. The night shift is a different beast from the day. The day is a battle of logistics, wood, water, timing, demands. The night is a battle of the mind. There are no distractions, no kitchen slaves dropping by, no gardener to watch, no changing demands from the bathhouse. There is only you, the fire, and the dark. You take a small clay lamp, a lucerna from a niche in the wall. You pour a tiny amount of olive oil into it, dregs from the kitchen jars, and light the wick with a splinter of burning wood from the furnace. The flame is small, a trembling teardrop of light that pushes back the shadows in the corners of the pit. It smells of burnt olives, a domestic scent that clashes with the industrial smell of the wood smoke. You place the lamp on the floor beside you. It is your clock. When the oil runs dry, you know a certain amount of time has passed. The heat in the pit changes character at night. Without the sun beating down on the ground above, the temperature differential between the furnace room and the outside world becomes extreme. The air at the top of the stairs is freezing, a wall of ice. The air at the bottom is tropical. You exist in a microclimate of your own making. You can feel the draft pulling harder now, the cold night air rushing down the stairs to feed the vacuum you have created. It brushes past your ankles, a ghostly touch, before being sucked into the fire. You decide to do a perimeter check. It is not strictly required. The fire is banked, but sitting still invites sleep, and sleep is forbidden. You wrap your heavy wool cloak around your shoulders, pulling the hood up. You pick up the lamp, shielding the flame with your hand, and climb the stairs. The world above is unrecognizable. The villa, so solid and imposing by day, has dissolved into a mass of shadows. The moonlight paints everything in shades of silver and black. The frost on the grass glitters like diamond dust. You walk softly, your boots crunching on the frozen earth. You are heading for the exterior walls of the sleeping quarters. You need to check the exhaust vents. You reach the north wall. High up near the eaves, there are ceramic grates where the smoke from the hypocaust exits. In the daylight, you can see the shimmering heat haze. Now in the dark, you have to rely on other senses. You stand under the vent and listen. You can hear a faint, low murmur like the sound of a seashell held to your ear. That is the sound of the hot air escaping. You sniff the air. It smells of wood smoke, but clean, not heavy. Good. The combustion is efficient. You place your hand on the stone wall at chest height. It is cold. You move your hand up higher, standing on your toes. There, about 7 feet up, the stone becomes warm. This is the level of the tubuli inside the wall. The heat is rising correctly. The master, sleeping on his raised bed on the other side of that wall, is enveloped in this warmth. He is floating in a bubble of heated air, dreaming of Rome, while you stand in the freezing mud of Britannia, auditing his comfort. You continue your patrol, moving around to the west wing. The wind is biting here, coming off the open fields. It cuts through your cloak, finding the gaps in the fabric. You shiver violently. The cold is a physical assault. It reminds you that you are a soft organism, evolved for the sun, trying to survive in a land that wants to freeze you. The hypocaust is not a luxury. It is a life support system. Without it, this villa is just a pile of cold stones. As you round the corner near the stables, you startle a figure in the dark. It is one of the vigils, the household guards. He spins around, spear lowering, before he recognizes you in the dim light of your lamp. He is wrapped in layers of wool and leather, looking more like a bundle of rags than a soldier. He lowers the spear. "Fireman," he grunts. His voice is rough with cold. "Watchman," you reply. You stand there for a moment, two ghosts in the night. There's nothing to say. You are both awake while the world sleeps. You are both serving the same master, protecting the same fortress, him against thieves, you against the winter. He nods at you, a short, jerky motion, and turns back to his patrol, his boots stamping on the ground to keep the blood flowing in his toes. You watch him go. You feel a strange kinship. You are the sentinels. You return to the Prefernium, descending back into the heat. The relief is instantaneous. Your skin prickles as the blood returns to the surface. You shed the cloak, hanging it on a peg. You check the fire. The roots are doing their job. They have turned into glowing lumps of charcoal, retaining their shape but radiating a fierce, steady heat. The draft is constant. The machine is running. You sit on the floor, leaning your back against the brickwork. This is the hardest part of the night. The adrenaline of the cold has worn off. The body wants to shut down. Your eyelids feel like they are made of lead. You stare at the lamp flame. It flickers and dances. You start to see things in the fire. Not the hallucinations of madness, but the drift of memory. You remember the heat of the sun in your childhood before you were a stoker. Maybe you were born in a warmer province, or maybe you just remember the summers of this island. You remember a time when warmth was free, falling from the sky, not dug out of the earth and burned. You look at your hands, illuminated by the lamp. They are scarred, calloused, stained. They are tools. You hear a noise from the flue, a sharp crack. You are instantly alert. That was the sound of a tile splitting, thermal expansion. Somewhere inside the floor or the walls, a ceramic tile has given way under the stress of the heat. It happens. Usually it is harmless, but sometimes a piece of broken tile can fall and block a channel. You rush to the furnace mouth, putting your ear close to the opening. You listen to the roar. Is it smooth? Is there a whistling sound that indicates a blockage? The roar continues, steady and deep. The airflow seems unimpeded. The crack was likely a surface fracture, or perhaps a box tile in the wall shifting. You breathe out. You cannot fix a broken tile from here anyway. To fix it would mean tearing up the mosaic floor in the master's bedroom. You pray to Vulcan that the tile stays in place. You do not want to be the one to explain why the floor has a cold spot tomorrow. You take the rake and gently prod the roots. They crumble slightly, revealing a core of blinding orange. You push them together, consolidating the heat. You are sculpting the fire. It is an art form. You know exactly how the air moves around each lump of fuel. You are fluid dynamics in human form. The hours stretch. The oil in your lamp burns down. You refill it. The night is a vast, featureless ocean of time. You occupy your mind by counting. You count the bricks in the archway, 52. You count the flagstones on the floor, 38. You count the number of breaths it takes for a drop of water to fall from the leaking pipe in the corner, 7. You think about the fuel consumption. You have burned perhaps 3 trees worth of wood today, a small copse. In a year, this villa consumes a forest. You imagine the hills around Viraconium, slowly being stripped bare to feed the hypocausts of the Roman elite. You are an agent of deforestation. The civilization you serve is a hungry thing. It eats wood, it eats land, it eats people, and it turns them all into heat and stone. Around the third watch, or what you guess is the third watch, hunger returns. It is a gnawing, empty feeling in your gut. You search your pockets. You have a few dried nuts, walnuts perhaps, that you scavenged earlier. You crack them open with the handle of your knife, careful not to crush the meat inside. You eat them slowly, savoring the oily richness. They are small bursts of energy. You imagine the master's dinner, the roast pork, the figs, the honey cakes. You wonder if he is dreaming of them. You hear the wind change direction outside. It begins to howl, a high-pitched whistling sound as it whips around the corners of the courtyard. This is dangerous. A strong gust can create a pressure vacuum at the top of the chimney, sucking the heat out too fast, or conversely, it can slam the air back down. You stand up, grabbing the damper plate. You feel the rhythm of the wind. Whoosh, silence, whoosh. You time your adjustments. When the wind gusts, you close the damper slightly to restrict the flow. When it lulls, you open it to let the fire breathe. You are playing the furnace like an instrument, keeping the melody of the heat steady against the chaotic rhythm of the storm. You do this for an hour, maybe 2, standing, adjusting, listening. Your legs ache, your eyes burn, but you do not let the fire die. You do not let the smoke back up. You are the thermostat. Eventually, the wind dies down. The silence returns, deeper than before. This is the dead of night, the hour of the wolf, the time when the barrier between the living and the dead feels thinnest. The fire is a comfort now. It is the only living thing in the room with you. You talk to it silently. You tell it about your day. You tell it about the girl in the kitchen you watch from afar. You tell it about the ache in your shoulder. The fire listens. It answers with warmth. You look at the pile of wood remaining. You have enough roots for maybe 2 more hours. Then you will need to switch back to the morning cordwood to ramp up the temperature for the waking hour. The cycle is endless. There is no finish line. There is only the next log. You find yourself dozing off, your chin hitting your chest. You jerk awake, panicked. You check the fire. It is fine. It is glowing steadily. You splash some water on your face from the jug. It is freezing cold now. The shock helps. You pace the room. You do stretches, reaching for the ceiling, trying to unkink your spine. You are a shadow boxing with fatigue. You wonder what it would be like to sleep in the room above. To lie on a soft mattress under a fur blanket, feeling the warmth rise gently from the floor. To wake up when you want, not when the fire demands. It is a fantasy so distant it feels like a story from the gods. You are not designed for that life. You are designed for this, the shovel, the rake, the soot. And yet there is a pride in it, a dark, secret pride. You know something the master does not. You know the cost of his comfort. You know the weight of the wood. You know the temper of the fire. He lives in a world of magic, where rooms are warm simply because they are rooms. You live in the world of reality, where warmth is work. You are the foundation. Without you, the villa is just a cave. The oil in the lamp is low again. The flame is sputtering, casting wild, jumping shadows on the walls. The shadows look like dancing demons. You watch them with detachment. You are too tired to be afraid of ghosts. You are a ghost yourself. You prepare the morning wood. You stack the oak logs near the furnace mouth, ready for the dawn protocol. You clear the space in front of the ash pit. You are setting the stage for your future self. In a few hours, the sun will rise, the house will stir, and the demands will begin again. But for now, it is just you and the embers. You sit back down. You wrap your arms around your knees. You stare into the deep, pulsing red of the root fire. It is like looking into the heart of the planet. You are warm. You are alive. You have survived the night so far. The long watch continues. The fire breathes and the house sleeps cradled in the warmth of your labor. You close your eyes for a count of 10, then open them. The fire is still there. You are still there. The night goes on. You hear the faint scratching of the rat again. It has returned. You toss a piece of walnut shell into the corner, a peace offering. You are not alone. You have your colleague, the rat, the fire, and the stoker, the holy trinity of the underfloor. The stars above the stairwell are shifting. The great bear has rotated further. Dawn is coming, but it is still hours away. These are the longest hours, the hours when the cold is strongest, when the will is weakest. But you will not fail. You are Roman iron. You are the hypocaust. You pick up the rake. One more adjustment. One more breath of air for the fire. The heat must flow. The empire sleeps and you keep the winter at bay. The night stretches on, vast and utterly still. You have made your last major adjustment to the furnace, banking the gnarled oak roots so tightly that the airflow is reduced to a cautious whisper. The fire is now a deep, hypnotic red, glowing like cooled magma. It is silent, save for the faint whoosh of the residual draft and the distant, almost imperceptible sound of the house itself. In the deepest hours, the villa talks. It creaks as the timber frame contracts in the cold. It sighs as the masonry settles. It makes small, soft noises that sound like breathing. You sit and listen to the building that is breathing because of you. You pull your rough wool tunic tighter around your shoulders. Even though the ambient temperature in the Prefernium is still high, the deep fatigue and the intense heat differential make you feel perpetually chilled. You find yourself drifting, the lamp's small flame the only anchor in a world of darkness and exhaustion. The scent of the burning roots is different, earthier, more mineral, a smell of compressed time. You realize it is during these long, isolated watches that you develop a true understanding of the materials you work with. The Romans valued brick, tile, and stone for their permanence, but you understand their limitations. They hold the heat well, but they are unforgiving. A sudden blast of cold air can crack them. They are heavy, and that weight presses down on the pillars of the hypocaust, demanding perfection in their construction. You are heating an enormous, fragile vessel, and you are its caretaker. You get up and walk to the top of the stairs again, opening the door slightly to peer out into the night. The moon is hanging lower now, starting its slow descent toward the western horizon. The air outside is bitterly cold, carrying the faint, clean scent of snow that has not yet fallen. You look at the sky. The stars are so brilliant they hurt your eyes, a density of light that suggests a universe indifferent to your small struggle with the cold. You are acutely aware of the social structure embodied in the heating system. The master of the villa, a decurio perhaps, owns the land, the wood, the villa, and you. He controls the economic inputs, the money to buy the best seasoned oak, the labor to dig the rootwood, but you control the output. You are the only person who knows, minute by minute, the true temperature of the caldarium, the true draw of the flue, and the precise moment the fire will die. If the master were suddenly forced down here to stoke the fire, he would fail. He would burn the house down, or he would let it go cold. Your power is invisible and unacknowledged, but it is absolute. You are the necessary man. You return to the heat, closing the door softly. You feel a strange kind of pride in this secret knowledge. It is a pride that cannot be taken away by a whip or a sneer. They own the stone, but you own the fire. You sit down and pick up the iron rake. You gently shift the roots, turning them over to expose a new surface to the coals. The action is silent, slow, deliberate. You are maximizing the surface area of the burn, stretching the life of the wood to its absolute limit. You see a flicker of bright blue flame suddenly leap up, the last remnant of a gas pocket in the root. Burns for a second, then vanishes, consumed by the draft. You think about hygiene. The master spends hours in his bath, scraping away the sweat and oil, slathering his skin with scented unguents. He is clean, soft, and perfumed. You, meanwhile, are perpetually covered in soot, sweat, and ash. Your linen tunic is stiff with grime. Your skin is permanently stained with carbon. You wash your face and hands often, but the dirt is ingrained. The fire, which creates their cleanliness, creates your dirt. It is another form of metabolic exchange. Their luxury is your filth. You check the water jar. It is almost empty. You will need to refill it soon, but the idea of going back out into the freezing night, breaking the ice on the trough, is a heavy one. You decide to wait until the first signs of dawn. You must conserve your movement, conserve your energy. The deepest part of the night demands stillness. You start to notice the strange ecosystem of the pit. The spiderwebs stretched across the corners are thick with ash, turning them into gray nets. The spiders themselves must live here, adapted to the heat and the dust. They are small, dark, and quick. You leave them alone. They eat the small flies and insects that are drawn to the warmth. They are your allies in pest control. You think about the concept of community. Up above, the house is a small community of family, guests, and senior slaves, bound by law and obligation. Down here, you are a community of one. But you are connected to the long line of stokers who built this system and kept it running for generations. You are using the same techniques, the same tools, the same knowledge passed down not through books, but through the calloused hand of an older slave showing a younger one how to read the smoke. It is a tradition of labor, older and more enduring than the political dynasties of Rome itself. The cold outside is at its peak. You know this instinctively. The draft rushing past you is no longer just cold, it is hard. It feels sharp, like tiny needles on your skin. You check the flue again. The fire is holding, but the temperature differential is intense, meaning the house is losing heat rapidly to the freezing exterior. You need to compensate without adding more wood, which would disturb the sleeping fire. You crawl into the entrance of the furnace arch, pushing yourself forward until your face is close to the glowing roots. The heat is overwhelming, driving the air from your lungs. You use a small, curved poker, a specific tool for this job, to gently scrape the ash away from the air vent directly beneath the burning roots. This subtle action, clearing the intake holes, delivers a fraction more oxygen to the heart of the fire. The red glow brightens immediately. It is a fine tuning, a delicate act of breathing for the furnace. You pull back, feeling the sweat on your eyelids sting your eyes. You have given the fire a silent shot of adrenaline. You return to your bench. The effect is immediate. The low roar of the draft deepens slightly. The heat emanating from the arch is more radiant. You have bought the house another hour of comfortable sleep with nothing but a few precise scrapes of a metal tool. You look at the lamp. The oil is almost gone. The small flame flickers, casting frantic, elongated shadows. As the light dwindles, your senses heighten. The sound of the fire becomes the dominant reality. It is a reassuring sound, the sound of warmth winning. You reflect on the seasonal challenges. This is the heart of winter. The spring will bring mud and damp. The summer will bring heat and flies, but the winter is the time of existential threat. This constant battle against freezing is what defines your year. You are a warrior in a private war against thermodynamics. You feel the first subtle shift in the darkness. It is not light, but a lessening of the dark. The deepest indigo of the night sky begins to turn to a faint, smoky purple. The air at the top of the stairs seems slightly softer, less aggressive. It is the pre-dawn false hope, the first sign that the sun is beginning its climb on the other side of the planet. You know that the house will stir soon. The senior household slaves, the dispensator, the triensis, will be the first to rise. They will expect the floor to be warm when their feet touch the mosaic. You have perhaps an hour before the first demands begin. This is the final push. You stand up, stretching your cramped muscles. The time for the sleeping fire is over. It is time for the wake-up call. You grab two of the seasoned oak logs you staged earlier. These are the main engine logs, the ones that create a powerful, sustained burn. You open the damper plate wide, letting the full force of the draft rush in. The furnace inhales deeply. You toss the first oak log onto the bed of glowing roots. The roots, having done their job, surrender their heat willingly. The oak log hits the embers and begins to smoke immediately. You position the second log, leaning it against the first. The flames start to lick the bark, hesitant at first, then growing stronger as the draft feeds them oxygen. The roar returns, climbing in pitch and intensity. You watch the transition. The slow, deep red glow of the root fire gives way to the bright, energetic yellow and orange of the fresh oak. The heat radiating from the arch becomes fierce, aggressive. The machine is roaring back to life. You grab the bronze water bucket and climb the stairs. The cold hits you, but it is a familiar shock now. You walk across the courtyard. The ground is still frozen, but the purple light of dawn is spreading across the eastern sky. You reach the trough. You plunge the bucket, breaking the thin skin of ice that has reformed. The cold water splashes your hands, a final, necessary cruelty before the day begins. You carry the full bucket back down. Effort of hauling the water is significant, but it is necessary. You top off the small reservoir near the furnace, the source for the damp cloth you use to wipe down the tools and cool your face. You pour a large measure into the jug for drinking. You are hydrating the machine. The heat is immense now. You have created a wall of hot air that is flowing, a solid river of energy under the villa. It is pushing out the last of the night's cold. You stand in the heat, your chest bare, feeling the energy flow through you. You are exhausted, but the proximity to this power is restorative. You hear the first clear sound from the house above that isn't a creak or a sigh. It is the distinct sound of a door unlatching, followed by the clatter of a wooden sandal on a stone floor. The dispensator is up. He is checking the atrium. He will be walking on the floor you just heated. You grab the iron rake one last time. You perform a final, definitive stroke, settling the logs, ensuring the maximum burn surface. The fire is perfect. It is roaring, the exhaust vents are humming, and the floor of the villa is radiating warmth. The day has begun. Your long watch is over and your work is proven. The luxury of Rome endures for another day, fed by the hidden fire in the earth. You sit back on the bench, taking a deep, slow breath of the smoky, warm air. You wait for the first sound of the kitchen starting up, the clanking of pots, the voices of the morning slaves. The rhythm of the household is returning. You are ready for the new demands. The transition to late morning brings a shift in the nature of your labor. The frantic, high-intensity burn of the waking hour has peaked, and now you are engaged in the long, drawn-out task of sustaining the house's warmth against a backdrop of increasing domestic activity. The air upstairs is likely a comfortable, pleasant temperature, and the master will be settling into the routine of his day-receiving visitors, dictating correspondence, perhaps performing his morning salutatio. Your work is now reactive, responding to the subtle signals that filter down into the pit. You stand over the archway, your face warmed by the intense, even heat emanating from the oak logs. The furnace is humming, consuming the wood with methodical efficiency. The flames are bright yellow, clean and strong, roaring up the channel and into the subterranean ducts. You monitor the smoke, faint, translucent gray haze that ensures the combustion is nearly complete. Too white and the fire is cold and wasteful, too dark, and you risk clogging the flues and smoking out the inhabitants. You maintain this precise balance with small, frequent adjustments to the damper. The sound of the house is your barometer. You hear the clatter of the kitchen slaves preparing the prandium, the midday meal, and you know the demands on the heating system will soon lessen. The heat from the cooking fires, which are separate open hearths in the kitchen wing, will contribute significantly to the warmth of the house's central core. This means you can afford to ease back on the main fire, conserving your precious oak supply. You use the rake to gently move the logs apart, breaking up the tight cluster. This slows the burn by allowing less surface area to be exposed to the draft. The flames subside slightly, dropping in height and intensity, settling into a strong, steady glow. You have to think hours ahead. The wood you save now is the wood that keeps the master warm late into the evening. Fuel economy is a survival skill, not just for the house, but for you. A slave who wastes wood is a slave who faces the lash. You take advantage of this lull to finally replenish your water supply. The jug has been empty for an hour, and your throat is dry, tasting metallic from the fine ash that floats in the air. You grab the jug and climb the stairs, savoring the shock of the cold air that hits your exposed chest. It is a cleansing feeling, a brief moment of cool clarity. In the courtyard, the sun has climbed higher and is weak but visible. You walk to the well, its stone lip covered in a thin, hard sheen of ice. You lower the jug on a piece of rope, listening to the hollow echo as it descends into the dark, cold earth. When you pull it up, the ceramic is dripping, sweating with the cold. Water inside is near freezing but clean. You drink deeply, the cold water a pleasant shock in your dry mouth, washing away the carbon dust. As you stand there drinking, a senior slave, the Atriensis, walks past, impeccably dressed in a clean off-white tunic. He does not look at you directly, but he pauses, his gaze fixed on the wellhead. The master's study is warm enough, he says, his voice flat and formal. But the west wall of the tablinum is losing heat faster than the others. Adjust the draw. The instruction is precise, technical, and delivered with the implicit authority of the master himself. The tablinum is the master's office, a critical location. The Atriensis assumes you have the technical skill to translate his demand into a physical action within the hypocaust. He doesn't ask how you will do it, he only demands the result. He then continues on his way, the rustle of his clean tunic a counterpoint to the rough wool you wear. You nod silently. The communication is complete. You have a new problem to solve. The west wall is the most exposed to the prevailing wind and the coldest afternoon sun. The flue for that section is a long, winding run from the furnace. To heat it, you need to push the heat further, fighting the natural loss. You hurry back down into the pit. You place the water jug in the corner, feeling the slight radiating warmth of the brick. You approach the fire with renewed focus. You cannot simply increase the total heat. That would overheat the rest of the house. You need to manipulate the direction. You grab a piece of scrap iron, a flat, curved section of old roof tile flashing, and your long-handled poker. You crawl close to the arch, pushing the metal plate into the furnace channel. You insert it just past the main burn zone, angling it so that it partially obstructs the flow of hot gas to the more central flues, forcing a greater volume of air into the secondary, longer run that feeds the tablinum. This is a risky maneuver. Too much obstruction and the fire will choke, forcing smoke back into the pit. Too little and the heat won't reach the target. You work with intense concentration, the heat blasting your exposed arms. The metal plate glows instantly red. You use the poker to push it into the optimal position, then quickly pull back. You sit and watch, listening to the change in the fire's voice. The roar is slightly higher pitched now, a tight, forced sound, confirming the flow restriction. The fire is working harder, pushing against the obstruction. The heat in the pit is aggressive, but you have accepted the cost. You are sacrificing a bit of efficiency and risking a blowback for the sake of the master's comfort in the tablinum. You wait for 10 minutes, watching the flames. They are steady. The blockage is not severe enough to choke the fire. The heat is now actively being shunted to the west. You have solved the problem of the cold wall. You use the downtime to prepare for the inevitable future task, cleaning the flues. Twice a year, when the weather warms, the entire system must be shut down. You have to crawl into the hypocaust chamber itself, walking amongst the pilly stacks, scraping the heavy layers of soot and ash from the floor and the walls of the ducts. You retrieve a worn, leather-bound sketchbook from your small niche. This is not for drawing. It is your record book. You use a piece of charcoal to write down the vital information: the day's total wood consumption, the amount of clinkers removed, and the timing of the bath service. Crucially, you also sketch the current condition of the flues. You draw a rough plan of the hypocaust, marking the long western run and the small hairline crack in the mortar you noticed yesterday. You make a note: flue 4, west wall, crack stable. Need 1 part clay, 3 parts crushed tile, 1 part sand for spring repair. This record keeping is vital. The maintenance schedule is too complex to keep in your head alone. The system is too old and too specialized. You are the only person who holds the full diagnostic map of this heating machine. You are its memory. As you write, you hear the distant sounds of the prandium, the meal beginning, the murmur of voices, the occasional burst of laughter, the clinking of goblets. You can smell the food again, stronger this time, the heavy scent of stewed pulses and maybe a roasted bird. You wonder if the master is discussing the latest reports from the frontier while his feet rest on the warm Ganymede mosaic. You eat your own meal now, a chunk of hard, dense bread and a piece of salty, dry cheese. You sit on the bench facing the fire, the intense heat a contrast to the cold water in your gut. You eat slowly, meticulously chewing every bite. The meal is not a pleasure. It is simply the refueling of your own engine. After eating, you turn your attention to your tools. You use a rag soaked in cool water to wipe down the handle of your iron rake. The metal is smooth, darkened by years of heat and sweat. You check the rivets on the shovel. These tools are your most valuable possessions, the instruments of your survival. You keep them sharp, clean, and whole. You notice the sunlight has disappeared entirely from the stairwell opening. The clouds you saw earlier must have thickened, turning the late morning into a premature twilight. The temperature outside will be dropping again. The winter is relentless. You check the fire again. The obstruction plate you installed is working. The concentrated heat is flowing west, but the roots are starting to lose mass. It is time to add another large log to sustain the burn through the long, sluggish afternoon. You select a piece of oak knot as large as the night logs but thick and knotty. You toss it onto the fire. It lands with a solid sound, instantly catching on the bright embers. The flames leap up, momentarily obscuring the metal flow plate you installed. You sit back watching the heat work. The afternoon is always the most taxing part of the work, physically and mentally. The house is warm, but the outside is cold. The contrast is tiring. The desire to simply lie down and let the heat lull you to sleep is powerful. You fight it with conscious mental work. You think through the history of the hypocaust. The knowledge comes to you unbidden. The system was not invented by the Romans, but perfected by them. The Greeks had a form of underfloor heating, but the Roman engineer Gaius Sergius Orata refined the principle, adding the suspended floor and the wall flues, turning a simple fireplace into a true central heating system. He made the warmth mobile, capable of moving from the heat source to the furthest room. You think about this man, Orata. He was a wealthy man who made his fortune selling villas with heated baths. His genius was not in the fire, but in the air, the ability to harness convection and turn a hot room into a warm house. You are executing the vision of a genius from 3 centuries ago. You check the water in the lead boiler tank again. Even though the bath is closed, a faint, wispy steam is rising from the surface of the water through the inspection ports. The residual heat from the main fire is still keeping the water very warm, hot enough for washing hands perhaps, but not bathing. This is a point of constant balance. Too hot, and you waste fuel. Too cold, and the next bath will take too long to heat. You rise and walk to the small hatch in the Prefernium wall that leads to the wood storage pit beneath the main storage shed. You need to rotate the stock. The oldest, driest wood must be used first. You push open the hatch. The smell of cold earth and dry wood rushes out. You crawl into the small, dark space. The floor is packed earth, cool against your hands and knees. You feel your way to the back, moving logs until you find the oldest stackwood that has been seasoning for over 3 years. It is light, almost hollow, and perfect for a clean, sustained burn. You load your arms, then back out, pulling the hatch shut behind you. The quick trip into the cold, dry air of the wood store has energized you slightly. You are ready for the afternoon watch. You begin the routine of restocking the pit floor, preparing the next stages of fuel. You are loading the hours ahead. Each log is a unit of time, a contained package of energy to be released on demand. The fire is steady. The west wall of the tablinum is likely warm. You have done your work well. The mastery of this ancient technology gives you a purpose that transcends your servitude. You are the mind and the hand that keeps the winter out. You are the operator of the fire, the unseen heart of the Roman dream in the cold, damp province of Britannia. You sit on the bench, watching the steady glow, knowing that for another day, the warm breath of civilization continues to flow through the walls of the villa, thanks to the vigilance of the man in the pit. The afternoon is long, but you are ready for it. The fire needs tending. The work continues.